Hi, I'm Shelley and I'm here to talk to you about the community internship that I did with Project Everest Ventures in collaboration with Griffith University and the amazing rewards, findings and benefits that I got out of this trip. So you're probably wondering why this chick is trying to persuade you to do some volunteering work in Fiji and what it could possibly do for you other than the obvious, gain experience and stuff like that. But you really do gain experience in a way that you don't think that you will. I certainly didn't think that I would get the results out of it that I did. It's absolutely rewarding. You gain a lot of personal and professional skills and develop these skills throughout the time that you're there. Before and during our time in country, we participated in a number of workshops and activities conducted by Project Everest that focused on improving public speaking skills, pitching ideas, leadership qualities, and other personal attributes. For me, this part of the trip was incredibly rewarding. It allowed huge opportunity for development that, to me, was priceless. Working with Project Everest Ventures, we visited a total of 13 villages in rural Fiji, surveying the villages there to collect data to identify trends and issues associated with water supply. This in itself allowed us to look beyond Australia and what we know to see the reality in other countries and how different the two realities can be in terms of technology, society, economy, and environmental issues, as well as how these things can contribute to engineering issues and opportunities. The range of technology available to these communities included mobile phone coverage, electricity from power lines, as well as things like borehole pumps and even solar pumps to help retrieve water from their sources. However, many places did not have flushing toilets or sewage connections to proper piping. These limitations and issues often resulted in unique innovations on the village's behalf, such as homemade septic tanks that were very effective and made from very basic materials. So it was very interesting to see these different approaches and innovations. In the rural villages that we visited, the economic status of the village as a whole was often quite low, which meant that they could not fund their own developments or fix broken utilities such as flushing toilets without government aid. This significantly impacts their ability to apply modern engineering solutions, as one village will have to share the government's resources. This developed a trend of government-based solution approaches and home-based solution approaches. However, the economic status being low often resulted in a different perspective on what water systems were adequate compared to someone from a first world country. These types of differing perspectives were very important, and it was essential to keep these in mind. The lack of a rubbish disposal system seemed to be the most prominent environmental issue that we encountered, with every village that we went to either burying or burning their rubbish because they didn't have any other way to dispose of it. There were also sometimes livestock near water supplies, which meant that their bodily fluids could enter the waterways and potentially impact the environment further downstream, as well as the health of the villages. From the research done and the data gathered, a number of key issues were identified throughout a range of the villages visited. Reliance on government assistance in the form of water trucks bringing water from a larger source to the villages to fill up their tank often resulted in a difficult water situation when trucks didn't turn up on time or when they were required, and often left villages without an immediate supply of water. Another key issue that we identified through the data that we collected in the villages was that there was often a case where villages had applied for government aid and they had done the preparation required, for example, building a concrete slab for a water tank to sit on, but they still hadn't received the tank that they had applied for. Without tanks to collect rainwater in, a lot of villages collected water straight off their roofs into drums and buckets. There were a few villages whose water supply contained some form of sediment that came from straight out of the tap. There was one particular village that found a sediment after boiling water, and in this same village, this sediment would often completely block the pipe network that they'd set up in the village and would require them to disassemble their pipes and clean them on a monthly basis, which makes it really hard to develop a permanent, sustainable solution. presence of pit toilets instead of flushing toilets near waterways also presented itself as a recurring issue in these villages and often endangered their water supply. In terms of the opportunities and challenges identified during the research study tour, it was identified that there is an opportunity for small-scale solutions, the type that Project Everest Ventures specialises in. However, because we were only there for 2 weeks, we weren't able to gather enough data to come up with a viable opportunity at present. There are, however, a number of challenges towards finding an engineering solution to these issues that we identified. One of them is the economic status of the villages, as mentioned earlier. Also, some villages' location was just too far away from a water source, which was common in a number of villages, which made it harder for them to get a permanent solution as well. We visited Suva City Council one day and they do a lot for the people within their zone, but all the villages that we visited unfortunately fall out of this zone, so they don't have that council support that other areas in Fiji do. One particular thing that I noticed in hindsight about the trip that and the work that we did in Fiji was that it required the use of a large number of the Engineers Australia engineering stage 1 competencies. Even though we were purely collecting data at this stage in the project, it was really interesting to see how all of these competencies actually played a role in our everyday activities, and it really does just show how important it is to have these skills and to develop them. The fact that we didn't have any time to waste and were on a strict schedule meant that we really had to be able to discern the direction that our research was going so we could work accordingly and effectively towards the goal that we had at the end. Going to a different country and working within international engineering practice meant that we had to have a keen knowledge of the contextual factors that impact the engineering discipline. We worked with Project Everest in one of the workshops to understand how important they are and how to work within that and keep all of that in mind. To be able to use and develop these competencies and these skills in a hands-on setting when you don't even realize that you're doing it was absolutely incredible, and it just goes to show how important it is to be able to have these skills. Overall, this experience was incredibly eye-opening in a personal, social, professional and engineering way. Being immersed in a new culture, seeing a different place full of different challenges, opportunities, approaches, innovation and people was something that I'll never forget and I aim to do again. It really allows you to immerse yourself in a hands-on application and develop yourself.